long before the railroads cut through the wild lands and long before the new towns grew noisy with merchants and travelers, the frontier stretched open and untamed. Winds moved across the plains like wandering spirits, carrying the scent of pine, dust, and stories forgotten by most folks. Travelers said that only the brave or the foolish crossed those lands alone. Yet that evening, under a pale gold sky and a storm rumbling far off, a young woman named Leora pushed forward on her tired horse, refusing to stop. She had been riding since dawn, running from danger she could no longer ignore. She did not look behind her even once. Fear pushed her forward. Hope pulled her forward too. Somewhere out there, she believed, she would find safety. Her cloak was torn at the corner, boots covered in dust, and her heart beat steady but frightened. She knew she could not stop in open ground. Wolves howled at night, outlaws roamed the lonely trails, and the cold could turn cruel without warning. But it was not animals or cold that chased her. It was something much more human, something that had turned her world upside down in just a few hours. She carried only a small satchel, holding what little she had left, and a faith that someone or something would help her survive. Clouds gathered over the mountains, swallowing the last bit of daylight. Leora guided her horse off the main trail and moved into the thick trees. She hoped to find a small cabin or an abandoned shelter, maybe even a cave where she could hide until morning. Instead, her horse suddenly halted and snorted. She felt its body tense beneath her. The forest had gone silent. No birds, no wind, not even the rustle of leaves. Then she saw him. A tall figure stepped out from behind the trees, silent as a shadow and strong as the land itself. His long black hair flowed over his shoulders, and the firelight from the distant sky caught the faint tribal markings on his chest. His eyes held the quiet of storms and mountains, deep and unreadable. Leora felt her breath narrow, unsure whether to turn and run or beg for help. The Apache warrior stared at her as if he had been expecting her. He did not threaten her. He did not speak at first. He simply watched, taking in the sight of a stranger lost in the darkest part of the forest. Leora felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Something about him was intimidating. But something about him also felt safe in a way she could not explain. When he finally stepped closer, the earth seemed to steady beneath him. His presence was powerful, grounded like old roots gripping the soil. Leora held her horse's reins tighter, waiting for him to speak. "You are far from your people," he said quietly, his voice deep, smooth, and firm. Leora swallowed. "I had no choice. I need shelter." Just for the night. He studied her again. She wondered what he saw. A frightened traveler. A stranger with no reason to trust. A woman with secrets. Whatever he saw made his expression shift, though she could not tell if it softened or grew sharper. "There is shelter," he said. "If you choose it." Her voice trembled. "I do. But choices have price," he replied. Leora felt the weight of those words. The forest seemed to lean closer. She knew nothing, and the wild frontier came free. But she was too exhausted to refuse, too desperate to turn away. She nodded slowly, not knowing what he would ask. The Apache stepped around her horse and met her eyes without a hint of hesitation. "I will give you shelter," he said, "but for 3 days, you stay with me." His words hung in the air like heavy smoke. She felt her heart beat louder. It was not a threat, but it was not casual either. It was a pact offered in the quiet of the wilderness, one she did not fully understand. She tried to read his face, but his expression was carved from stone. "What does staying with you mean?" she asked carefully, fearing the worst. "It means, you do not leave my protection," he answered. "You follow my rules. You move where I move. For 3 days, you are under my watch." Leora let out a slow breath she had been holding. He had not crossed a line. He had not hinted at anything cruel or dishonorable. But the way he looked at her carried a weight she could not ignore. Something about him was fierce, something ancient, something she felt deep in her bones. "Do you agree?" he asked. Lightning flashed far in the distance. Her horse shifted nervously. The storm was coming fast, and she had nowhere else to go. Her strength was fading. Her fear was growing. She had only one choice if she wanted to live through the night. "I agree," she said. The Apache nodded once. "Then follow." She dismounted, her legs weak, and walked beside him. Each step felt slower, heavier. She realized she did not even know his name. She wondered if she should ask, but something about the quiet tension kept her silent. For the next few minutes, they walked through the thick forest. The rain began to fall gently at first, then harder. Her cloak soaked through, and she shivered from the chill. When they reached a hidden clearing, she gasped softly. A small lodge stood there, warm light flickering inside from a fire. It looked sturdy, safe, and strangely inviting. Smoke curled from the top, carrying the smell of cedar. It felt like safety she had never expected to find. The Apache pushed open the wooden door, letting the warm glow spill out. Inside, he said. Leora stepped in, feeling heat rush over her chilled skin. The fire crackled. The room was simple, but everything was clean, carefully arranged, and meant for survival. She turned to him, unsure what to do next. He walked in after her and closed the door, shutting out the thunder and darkness. His eyes met hers again, steady and unblinking. "For 3 days," he reminded. Leora nodded. Though her heart raced, she did not know that the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm waiting inside these walls. She did not know the danger she ran from was about to collide with a secret the Apache carried, and she did not know that her choice, made in fear, would shape everything that came. After she only knew one thing as the firelight danced. Across his strong features, and the night grew colder, something was about to happen, something she was not ready for, and it had already begun. The fire crackled softly as Leora stood near it, warming her hands and trying to gather her breath. The lodge felt safer than the forest, yet something inside her remained tense. The Apache warrior moved with a quiet certainty, setting aside his bow and checking the edges of the lodge as if ensuring no danger had followed them. Every step he took was controlled, firm, and steady, like a man who had lived his whole life in places others feared to enter. She wanted to ask him many things, yet she stayed silent for the moment. He placed dry wood on the fire and looked her way just once, enough to show he was aware of her every move. His presence filled the room in a way that made her both uneasy and strangely secure. She kept her cloak tight and studied the lodge more closely. It was simple but strong, made from thick logs bound with skill. Everything inside had purpose. Dried herbs hung above the door. A knife rested on a wooden table. A woven blanket lay neatly folded near a bed made of pine branches and soft hides. "You are tired," he said, not lifting his eyes from the fire. "Sit, warm yourself." She lowered herself onto a small bench, keeping her distance. The warmth soothed her frozen fingers, but her mind raced. She replayed the last few days, each event becoming sharper and heavier. She wondered if she should explain why she was running, or if he already knew something she didn't. "You have not asked my name," he said after a long, quiet moment. "I did not know if I should," Leora answered softly. "You should," he replied. "A person deserves to know who they place their trust with." She hesitated, then nodded. "Tell me." "My name is Kale," he said. The word carried weight, like thunder rolling through mountains. Lara repeated it gently under her breath. Kale, he finally looked at her, and she felt the intensity of his gaze again. It was not unkind, only searching, as if he was trying to read the truth buried behind her eyes. She felt exposed under that look, as if every fear and secret she carried traveled across her face without her permission. "And your name?" Kale asked. "Leora." He gave a slow nod. The fire snapped between them, casting shadows on the walls. Rain outside had turned heavy, hitting the roof with force. She knew she would not have survived the night if he had not found her. Yet nothing about her situation felt simple. She wondered why he had offered shelter to a stranger when the frontier often made folks wary of anyone unfamiliar. Kale sat near the fire, sharpening the edge of his knife with smooth strokes. The steady sound filled the room. Leora watched the motion, noticing how careful he was, how much attention he gave to every small detail. He was not a careless man. He was not the type to make empty offers. That truth made her more nervous, not less. I met you on a dangerous trail, Cale said, voice calm. That part of the forest is not safe for travelers. Something follows you. I could feel it in the air, her breath caught. She wondered how he sensed it so easily. She had tried to hide her fear, but fear had a way of clinging to a person. There. Is danger behind me? She admitted quietly. What kind? He asked without looking away from the blade. The kind that does not? Stop until it gets what it wants, she said, and I cannot allow it to reach me. Cale paused for a moment, then resumed sharpening. That is not an answer. She looked at the ground. I know. Another quiet fell between them. The fire filled the silence. Cale's calmness did not feel empty. It felt like he was giving her time, waiting for her to gather her strength before she spoke more. But Leora was torn. Part of her believed telling him everything would pull him into her problems. Another part of her feared he already understood too. Much Cale slid the knife into its sheath and finally turned fully toward her. In these lands, a person does not survive alone, he said. If you want to live long enough to reach your people again, you must tell the truth. She nodded slowly. I will, she said, but not yet. It is not that I do not trust you. It is just too heavy to speak tonight. Cale accepted that with a simple nod, then tossed another log onto the fire. Sparks flew upward. 3 days, he reminded. You stay under my protection. Whatever follows you will have to face me first. The words sent a strange feeling through her chest. Gratitude, worry, and something she could not name. Cale did not say those words with pride, but with certainty, as if it was a promise he fully intended to keep. She wondered why. He owed her nothing. Yet he was offering everything. Laura leaned back slightly, letting the heat ease her shivers. Why did you help me? She asked. Cale looked into the fire for a long moment before answering. Because sometimes the land sends a person to your path for a reason? And because the storm would have taken you before dawn? She felt her eyes sting with emotion, but blinked it away quickly. She had not cried in years, and would not start now, not in front of someone who seemed carved from strength itself. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The wind rattled the branches. Cale rose and checked the door latch, making sure it held firm. Leora watched him move. Noticing how he looked out into the storm as if listening to something beyond human hearing. Is something out there? She asked. Maybe, he replied. The forest changes when danger is near. I trust the land more than I trust words. A chill ran down her spine. She wrapped her arms around herself and turned toward the fire. Do you think they followed me this far? She whispered. Cale did not answer right away. Instead, he lowered himself by the window and peered through the small opening. Rain slid down the logs outside, making everything shimmer. It is possible, he said. Storms give cover to men who want to move unseen. Her heart thudded hard. If they find me here, you will be caught in it too. Cale's voice remained steady. I have faced worse than your pursuers. She wanted to believe him. In fact, part of her already did. The lodge felt safe. Yet the storm in Cale's watchful silence reminded her that danger had not passed. It had only paused. She wondered what Cale knew, what he sensed, what his life had taught him that hers never had. His calmness came from something deep, something old. She could feel it. Leora stood and walked a little closer to the fire, trying to settle her nerves. What will tomorrow look like? She asked. We will see, Cale replied. If the storm clears, we move deeper into safer territory. No one finds this place unless they know it. Do many people know it? She asked. Only me? She exhaled slowly. That meant she was hidden better than she thought. But it also meant she was dependent on him more than she expected. 3 days. That pact rang through her mind like a drumbeat. She had agreed too quickly, yet she could not imagine refusing. Without Cale, she would already be cold in the forest. Cale reached for his bow again. I will keep watch for a while, he said. You rest. You are safe for now, Leora shook her head. I cannot rest. My mind will not calm. It will, he said. When a person reaches the end of their strength, the body forces rest. She knew he was right, but sleep felt distant. He moved toward the door, pausing before stepping outside. Rain poured down in harsh sheets. The wind roared through the trees. Still, Cale walked into it with steady steps, bow in hand as if storms were old friends. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To listen," he said. Then the door closed behind him. Leora stayed near the fire, listening to the storm and the faint sounds of the wilderness. Every creak of the lodge made her heart jump. Every rustle outside felt like footsteps. She hugged herself tighter, the warmth of the fire battling the cold of fear. Minutes stretched, maybe hours. She could not tell. Then suddenly, a sharp sound echoed outside. Not thunder, not wind. Something else. Something she did not want to hear. Leora stood quickly, pulse racing. Cale had not returned, and whatever made that sound was getting closer. The sharp sound came again. Closer this time, clean and hard, like metal against stone. Leora's breath hitched. She stepped away from the fire and moved toward the door, every muscle tight. The small lodge, which had felt safe only moments before, now felt like a wooden shell waiting to be cracked open. She thought of Cale out in the storm with only his bow and his silent courage. The idea of him facing danger alone stirred something fierce inside her. She reached the door and pressed her ear against it. The rain had softened, turning into a steady curtain instead of a wild roar, which made every other sound more clear. Somewhere out in the darkness a branch snapped. Then a low murmur of voices drifted through the trees. Not many, 2 or 3 at most. But each one carried the rough edge of men who were used to taking what they wanted. Leora knew those tones far too well. Her heart thumped. If they had tracked her here, then the storm had not hidden her trail as much as she had hoped. Fear rose inside her, not only for herself, but for Cale. He had given her shelter. Now he might pay for it with his life. A shadow crossed the crack beneath the door, and she jumped back. For a second she wondered if she should bar the door, but Cale had left it as it was. Changing it might interfere with whatever plan he had. She forced herself to steady her breathing and moved to the side. Pressing against the wall where she could not be seen from outside, the voices grew louder. She picked out a name drifting through the rain. "Torin, you sure she came this way?" one man asked. "She could not ride far," another voice answered. "Horse was worn thin when she fled the ranch. She knows nothing of these woods. She will look for light. She will look for shelter. If there is a roof nearby, she is under it." Leora's throat tightened. Torin. The name struck her like a cold slap. Torin Dane, the ranch master, who held more land than he deserved, and more darkness than the land could swallow. She had once trusted him, or at least believed he was a hard but fair man. That belief had shattered 2 nights ago. She remembered the last time she had seen his face. The fire of the branding pit lighting his eyes. The way he had stared at her when she refused to sign the paper he placed in front of her. A paper that would have tied her to his ranch and his control for the rest of her life. He had offered protection in exchange for obedience. She had declined. It would have ended there if not for what she overheard afterward near the barn. His plan, his lies, his deal with the men who circled the town like vultures. Once she heard it, she knew she either ran or lost herself forever. Now he hunted for her with the stubborn pride of a man who could not accept defiance. Another voice joined the others outside. "Tracks end near here. See, footprints, horseprints." Then nothing. Like the forest swallowed her. "The forest does not swallow people, Cade," Torin replied. "Men do. Or beasts. Or the Apache." The word cut through the air. Liora held her breath. "You think one of them took her?" Cade asked. Torin spat, the sound clear even through the wood. "These lands are theirs. More than ours. They see everything. If one of them found a lone woman fleeing, he would take her in. Or take her as his own. Either way, she will not leave without help." Leora's eyes burned with anger. She was not property to be chased or claimed. Yet she knew men like Torin believed exactly that. Her anger gave her strength, but it did not ease the danger at the door. "Spread out," Torin ordered. Look for tracks around this lodge. If she is inside, we will know soon enough. Leora's pulse raced. Lodge. Torin had seen the faint glow from the fire through the cracks. She backed away from the door and looked toward the small window where Cale had stood earlier. Rain blurred the glass, turning the world outside into shifting shapes. Then, as if summoned by her fear, Cale appeared in the window. His face was half shadow, half stormlight. He held a finger to his lips, signaling silence, then vanished again. She let out a tight breath she did not realize she was holding. He was alive. He was close. He had seen them. She crouched low beside the bed, trying to make herself smaller. Every creak of the wood sounded like thunder to her ears. She could almost feel Torin's eyes searching the clearing. The rain softened further, and a slice of moonlight broke through the clouds, giving the night a sharper edge. Tracks here, Cade called. 2 sets of prints. One small, one larger. Both headed to this door. Leora's heart pounded so hard she thought they would hear it. Check the door, Torin said. Footsteps approached. The latch rattled lightly as someone tested it. The door did not open. Leora wondered if she should hold it from the inside, but stopped herself. If Cale had a plan, she needed to trust him. This was his land, not hers. Door is shut, Cade said. No smoke now. Only a bit of light from the cracks. Someone is inside, and someone will open, Torin replied. Or we will open it for them. Then a new sound cut through the storm. A sharp whistle, low and short, like a bird call. Leora recognized it from earlier, when Cale had moved through the trees and tested the air. It was his signal, a warning or a message, but she did not know what it meant. A second later, the forest replied with another whistle, distant but clear. For a moment, the men outside fell quiet. What was that? Cade asked. Only birds, another said. Though he did not sound sure, Leora's mind raced. If Cale was whistling, he was not alone. Perhaps he had allies nearby. Other Apache who watched the borders of this forest. The idea brought both comfort and concern. If more of his people were here, they might view her as a burden or a threat. Yet if they decided to stand with Cale Tyrone and his men would face more than a lone warrior. The rain eased into a mist. The silence stretched. Leora thought she could hear her own blood rushing in her ears. You inside? Torin called suddenly, his voice sharp as a whip. Open this door. I know you hear me. A man with nothing to hide does not bar his house against his neighbors. Leora stayed still. She knew Cale would not want her to answer. Torin waited. When no reply came, his voice hardened. We are tracking a runaway from my ranch. She has stolen something from me. I aim to take it back. If you shelter her, you stand against me and against the law of this land. Out. Leora's hands balled into fists. She had stolen nothing. The only thing she carried from his ranch was the truth she heard, and truth was not his to own. Yet she also knew that in this rough frontier, men like Tyrone could twist the law until it bent around their will. Inside the lodge, the fire crackled softly. A single ember popped, and she flinched. You hear that? Cade muttered outside. Before Torin could answer, another voice, deeper and calm, cut through the night from the trees. The law of this land is older than your ranch, Torin Dane. Leora felt the air inside the lodge change. Her chest loosened. Cale had spoken. There was a brief pause. Torin's tone shifted, more guarded now. Step out where I can see you, Apache. Cale ignored the insult in the word, or at least hid any anger. You already see me, he said. You knew this lodge would not stand empty forever. Yet you walk into my hunting grounds with your boots heavy and your threats louder than the thunder? Why? I am looking for a woman, Torin answered. Young dark hair. Wears a brown cloak. She ran from my land. She is lost and frightened. I aim to bring her back. If you have seen her, speak. I will take her and leave your woods in peace. Leora could almost hear Cale's silence as he weighed his answer. Your words carry false weight, Cale said. You do not search for her safety. You search for control. I saw it in your riders before. They ride with greed, not worry. Torin laughed once, a short, harsh sound. You speak big for a man alone, Kale. The woman you hide is trouble. She heard things she should not have heard. She carries knowledge that can stir up dust better left settled. If you keep her, the trouble will spread to you. Leora realized with a twist of fear that Torin knew Kale by name. These men had crossed paths before. Whatever history they shared was not friendly. What did she hear? Kale asked. Voice level. That is between me and her, Torin replied. No, Kale said. It became my concern when she stepped into my forest and you followed with guns and lies. The word guns made Leora's stomach turn. She had not seen them yet, but she knew Torin's men would not come unarmed. Kale had only his bow, his knife, and his knowledge of the land. It did not feel like a fair balance. Rain dripped from the roof edge, steady as a ticking clock. Night pressed in even closer. I will not ask again, Torin said. If she is inside, send her out. I will not harm you for giving her shelter. But if you stand in the way, I will do what I must. Even the old trees burn when fire finds them. Leora's heart twisted at the image. She pictured the lodge in flames, the forest crackling, Kale fighting alone among the sparks. She could not let that happen. Yet stepping out would mean falling back under Torin's hand? His threats, his lies, his controlled world. She slid closer to the door. Torn between two dangers. Outside, Kale answered with a calm that did not reach his eyes. This lodge will not burn tonight, he said. Turn your horses away from my land and ride back to your ranch. The rain washed your tracks. No one will know you came. Your secret stays in the dark. As long as you leave now. Silence followed. The offer hung there, sharp and generous at once. Torin did not accept it. You think you hold power because the trees favor you, he said. But the town listens to me. The law listens to me. I can tell them you hit a thief. I can tell them you conspired with her. They will come with torches and ropes. They will not ask for your side. They never do. Those words cut deep. Leora felt the bitter truth of them. She had seen how the town treated Kale's people, how quick they were to blame them whenever anything went wrong. A missing cow. A broken fence. A lost traveler. The Apache were blamed even without proof. Kale knew it too. His silence held that weight. This was the true conflict now. Not just Leora running from one man's control, but Kale choosing whether to protect her at the cost of bringing more trouble to his already pressured life. Leora heard. Cage shift impatiently. Say the word Torin, he muttered. We can knock that door down in a breath. The woman will scream, but she will come. Her stomach twisted. She pressed her lips together to keep from making a sound. Kale spoke again, his tone lower now. If you touch that door, you cross a line that cannot be stepped back from. What line? Torin asked. The one between warning and war, Kale answered. The word war drifted through the rain. Heavier than any threat so far. Leora thought of Kale's people scattered through the hills. Families who only wanted peace, yet held old wounds from broken promises. If Turan pushed too far, the trouble would not end at this lodge. It would spread to ranches, camps, and the town itself. For a moment, even Turan seemed to feel the weight of that word. No one spoke. Then another sound reached them, faint at first, then growing. Hoofbeats more than a few. Leora's blood ran cold. Reinforcements. Torin had not come with only 2 men after all. He had brought more riders. They were arriving now. Kale heard it too. The balance outside the lodge was shifting, and inside. With her back against the rough log wall and her heart pounding, Leora realized that the promise she had made to stay 3 days under Kale's shelter had drawn them both into a fight that none of them were ready to face. The hoofbeats grew louder, rolling through the trees like distant thunder, drawing closer with every breath. Leora pressed her back against the wall, fingers trembling as she tried to steady herself. The lodge felt smaller with each passing second, as if the walls themselves were bracing for what was about to come. She wanted to move, to run, to do anything other than wait, but she remembered Kale's quiet command to stay hidden. She trusted him, even though everything outside screamed danger. Outside, Torin's voice rose again. Good, they are here. Now we will finish this. Cale did not answer. The silence he held felt heavier than words. Leora imagined him standing tall in the rain, bow in hand, eyes fixed on the men approaching through the forest. He faced them without fear, but she knew he was outnumbered. The thought made her chest tighten. Turan stepped forward, boots squishing in the wet soil. Cale, you will hand her over. No more warnings. No more talk. You are outmatched. No, Cale said, voice low and steady. Leora flinched at the tension in that single word. She took a slow breath to steady herself, but the air inside the lodge felt too thin. She whispered Cale's name under her breath, as if it could somehow reach him. Torin scoffed. You stand alone, Cale replied. No one who stands for truth stands alone. Before Torin could speak again, another whistle sounded through the trees. Not Cale's. A different tone. A different message. Then, a rustling moved along the tree line. Shapes shifted in the dim moonlight. Leora blinked, unsure if her eyes were playing tricks, but then she saw it clearly. Shadows moved with calm purpose. Figures appeared among the branches and brush, far more silent than the men Toran had brought. Apache warriors. Cale was not alone after all. One of Torin's men cursed. I knew it, he called them. Torin's jaw tightened. Stay sharp. They do not dare strike first. Not unless we force them. Leora held her breath. She prayed no one would force anything. Cale spoke again, voice stronger now. Turn back before the land turns against you. Take your riders home, Torin. There is no victory here. Torin took a step closer, his boots sinking deeper into the mud. I do not ride away because you whisper threats. I ride away when I have what is mine. Leora's hands balled into fists. She leaned forward, swallowing the fear rising in her throat. She could not let Torin twist her fate again. Her voice trembled, but she forced it into the open. You do not own me, Torin, she said. The lodge door muffled her words, but not enough. Outside, Torin froze. The men behind him shifted, surprised to hear her voice at last. Cale's eyes flickered toward the lodge, a brief warning that she should stay hidden. Torin smirked. There she is. The runaway. The little spark that thinks she can burn down a whole ranch with a secret she does not understand. Leora stepped away from the door, heart pounding like a hammer. Memories flooded her mind. The night she overheard Torin speaking with those men. The secret meeting behind the barn. The plan to expand his land by force, using lies and bribes to push families off their homesteads. It had been enough proof to expose him, but only if she survived long enough to reach the town. Torin continued, words dripping with false calm. Leora, you think the Apache will protect you when the town decides your words are nothing but the blames of a frightened girl? Bring truth forward, and they will call you wild. Bring secrets forward, and they will call you liar. Leora shut her eyes, fighting the sting in her chest. He always did this, twisting the truth to break someone's strength. But not this time, Cale answered before she could speak. Her truth is stronger than your lies, Torin. Torin laughed softly. You defend her like you know her story. Cale's voice grew firmer. I defend what is right. That is enough. Tension in the clearing pulled tight. The Apache warriors remained still, watching from the shadows. Torin's riders shifted impatiently, hands on their rifles. Rain slid off their hats and coats, dripping steadily onto the forest floor. A man beside Torin, thinner and more nervous than the others, leaned close. Torin, this is not wise. They have numbers in the trees. We should reconsider. Turan glared at him. Weakness has no place here. Cale's voice cut through the storm. Weakness is holding on to power with fear. The thin man stepped back. Torin stared at Cale with a cold intensity. I gave you a chance to stay out of this. Now you will pay the price with her. That was when Leora realized Torin did not just want to take her back. He wanted to destroy everything that protected her. And if Cale continued to stand between them, he would become the first target. A heavy dread settled in her stomach. She needed to act, but she also knew stepping out now could push Cale into greater danger. She paced quietly, looking for any sign, any opening, any idea. Her eyes fell on Kale's spare bow resting in the corner. She had trained long ago, enough to hit targets at a short distance, enough to defend herself if she had to. But stepping into the conflict could ruin everything. Kale had asked her to trust him for 3 days. This was still only the first out outside. The hoofbeats finally slowed. More riders arrived. Torrhen's reinforcements. The air thickened with danger. Kale raised his voice, speaking to the arriving men. Turn back. You ride into a fight that is not yours. One of the newcomers laughed. We follow Torrhen, not you. Kale stood tall. Then you follow a man who brings danger into the forest without reason. A rider spat on the ground. Reason enough for us. The Apache shadows tightened. The air grew sharp. The forest listened, with branches still and breath silent. Leora's pulse hammered. She could feel the story of her life twisting into something larger than herself. She had never wanted a war between men. She had only wanted safety. But safety had become a spark, and that spark was now lighting the edges of a fire she could not put out. Torrhen finally stepped forward, closer to the door than ever. Kale, step aside. Doe, Kale said. Torrhen raised his hand. For a moment, the world froze. Even the rain seemed to pause. Then a branch snapped loudly behind Torrhen's men, followed by the sound of quick footsteps. Torrhen spun. One of his riders shouted. Another cursed. Shapes darted through the trees. Not Apache warriors this time, but wild horses that had been spooked by the riders approaching earlier. The herd burst into the clearing, crashing through underbrush with powerful strides. Mud and water flew everywhere as the horses galloped past, scattering riders and knocking one man off his feet. Torrhen yelled orders that were drowned out by the chaos. Kale took one step back toward the lodge, kept his bow drawn. Leora saw the opening. A tiny one, but it existed. Torrhen's men were distracted. The Apache warriors shifted slightly, ready to move if needed. The clearing was in chaos, and in chaos, truth could slip through cracks. She grabbed Kale's spare bow and slung it over her shoulder. Her hands trembled, but determination pushed her forward. She opened the lodge door just enough for the light to hit her face. Kale turned sharply. His eyes widened just a fraction. A look that said both stay back and I knew you would come. Torrhen spun around, face twisted with fury. Leora, he snapped, do not test me. She stepped out anyway, keeping the bow lowered but in sight. The forest seemed to breathe around her. The rain softened into mist. Every rider, every warrior, every shadow in the clearing fixed their eyes on her. Her voice was shaky, but she forced it into the open. This ends tonight, one way or another. Kale moved to stand closer, not shielding her, but standing with her. She felt the strength of his presence steady her knees. Torrhen pointed at her. You come with me now, or everyone here pays for your choice. Kale spoke before she could. She chooses her own path. You do not control it. Torrhen's eyes flicked between the two of them, fury building like fire licking dry timber. You think she will be safe with you? He asked. You think you can shelter her against the whole town? Kale did not answer with words. He stepped forward, bow ready, expression carved from stone. The Apache. Shadows shifted behind him. The riders tightened their grips on their rifles. The horses circled restlessly. Picking up on the tension, Leora felt the air tremble with the weight of what was coming. She took a breath, knowing that the moment the wrong move was made, everything would break apart. Every life in the clearing would be pulled into a storm, far darker than the one that raged earlier. Torrhen raised his hand again, and the night held its breath, waiting for the spark that would decide everything. Torrhen's raised hand hovered in the misty air, and for one long breath, the world refused to move. Even the horses stood still, steam rising from their nostrils, as if they too felt the strain of the moment. Leora stood with her bow lowered at her side, her heart steady now, not wild. Kale stood at her shoulder, grounded and calm, a reminder that she was not alone. The storm had ended, yet the tension hung like thick smoke. Torin finally broke the silence, his voice rough with anger. Leora, this is your last chance. Come back, or face the cost of your choice. Leora took a step forward, surprising even herself. The cost of going back is far worse, she said. I heard what you planned with those men at the barn. I know you want to push families off their land. I know you paid riders to stir fear in the valley. If I return, I disappear. If I walk with you now, the truth remains hidden. Torin's jaw tightened. You think anyone will believe you? Kale answered for her. They will when she brings proof. Torin shook his head and tried to laugh, but the sound fell flat. Proof? You have none. Leora reached into her satchel and pulled out a folded paper, protected from the rain by a small cloth. I took this when I fled. You left it on the table that night. It has your handwriting. Names of families. Payments you've planned to make. Plans to take land by force. Torin's eyes widened. His men exchanged uneasy looks. Some shifted in their saddles, suddenly unsure of the man leading them. Kale stood taller. The town may not listen to my voice, but they will listen to theirs. He nodded toward the riders who now eyed Torin with doubt, and they will listen to hers. Torin's fury peaked. Take it from her, he shouted, but no one moved. Cade, the rider nearest to him, lowered his rifle. You lied to us, Torin, he said quietly. You said she stole? You never said anything about plans to force families out. That is not a fight we want. Another rider nodded. This is wrong. We came to bring her back, not to help you take over the valley. Torin pointed at them with rage burning in his eyes. Cowards. All of you. Yet even as he shouted, the forest around them came alive with quiet strength. The Apache warriors stepped forward from the trees, not threatening, just present, making it clear Kale had support. The riders shifted uncomfortably, understanding the situation had changed. Torin realized it too. His grip tightened around his reins, but he had lost control of the moment. Kale took one step forward. Leave this land, he said. Ride home. When the sun rises, the truth will ride with her to the town. If you stand in the way, they will see you for what you are. Torin's breath came hard. His pride battled his fear, but the weight of too many eyes forced him back. His horse pawed the ground, picking up on his frustration. Finally, he snapped the reins. This is not over, he growled. Kale held his gaze. It is for tonight. Torin turned his horse sharply and rode off with forced dignity, mud splashing beneath him. His remaining men hesitated, then followed at a distance. Some looked back at Leora with guilt or regret, but they did not return. The sound of their retreat faded through the forest, until only the soft wind remained. Leora let out a breath that shook her to her core. The tension eased like a knot slowly releasing. The Apache warriors blended back into the trees, respectful and calm. Kale lowered his bow, finally allowing the strain in his shoulders to loosen. Leora looked at him with a quiet mix of relief and emotion. You stood with me, she said softly. Kale met her eyes. A man stands with what is right. The simple words reached deeper than she expected. She felt something inside her settle, something that had been restless for far too long. For the first time since she fled the ranch, she felt safe in a way she could trust. Kale walked her back to the lodge, keeping watch until they were inside. The fire still glowed on the hearth, steady and warm. Leora sank onto the bench, her legs finally giving in. Kale knelt near the fire and added wood, letting the room fill with comfortable heat. You are brave, he said quietly. Leora shook her head. I just did what I had to. Bravery is doing what you must when fear tells you not to. She smiled a little, warmed more by his words than by the fire. You kept your promise of shelter, and you kept your agreement to stay, he replied. 3 days. But they do not have to be days of fear anymore. She felt the weight of those words too. 3 days. When she agreed, she had imagined fear, uncertainty, and danger. Instead, she found protection, truth, and something she had not expected to find at all. A sense of belonging. Kale stood and offered his hand. When she placed her hand in his, he helped her to her feet. You need rest, he said. So do you, she answered. He gave a slight smile. I will rest when I am certain you are safe. Leora felt warmth rise in her chest. Not the heat of fear or battle. Something gentler. Something patient. The storm passed fully through the night. By morning, the sky cleared, washed blue and peaceful. Mist rose from the ground like soft breath. Birds returned to the branches, and sunlight warmed the earth. Leora stepped outside and breathed deeply for the first time in days. Cale joined her, watching the forest with quiet pride. The land breathes again, he said. It feels like a new beginning, she replied. He nodded. It can be if you choose it, she looked at him. I will go to town today. I should show them the papers. They need to know the truth. I will go with you, Cale said. You do not have to, she replied gently. I do, he said. A person does not face truth alone. They packed provisions and rode together through the clearing. The Apache warriors watched silently from the trees, giving Cale respectful nods as he passed. Leora felt no fear riding beside him, only calm. The road to town was long, but it felt lighter with each mile. When they arrived, curious eyes followed them. Leora expected whispers, judgment, doubt. Instead, people listened when she spoke. Cale stood behind her, offering silent strength. When she showed the papers, the faces of the townsfolk changed. Some with shock, some with anger, some with sadness. They realized Torin had misled them all. By sundown, the sheriff promised an investigation. Families thanked Leora for coming forward. Some spoke to Cale with respect, something rare in those lands. A weight she had carried for too long finally lifted. When they rode back toward the hills, the sky blazed with a warm sunset. Leora breathed deeply, feeling something only freedom could bring. Cale looked at her as the horses moved side by side. Your 3 days under my shelter end tonight. Not with fear. With something she did not want to lose. Do you want them to end? She asked softly. Cale took a slow breath. Only if you wish to go. Leora felt the choice clear in her heart. I do not wish to go. Cale's eyes softened, warmer than any sunrise. Then stay. Not because you must. Because you choose it. She smiled, a real one, filled with gratitude and hope. Then I choose to stay. They reached the lodge as the stars rose, bright and steady above the quiet forest. The fire inside glowed warm again, and for the first time, it felt like home. Leora knew her journey had changed her. She had faced darkness and found strength. She had gained truth, safety, and something much deeper. Cale walked beside her. Not as her protector now, but as her partner in a new beginning. And in the peaceful glow of the fire, the world finally felt right.